forward to the new video from Lumpy and the Lumpettes. Even Lumpy. Russell's a huge fan. He can't wait to tell all his friends about it. Hey, Russell! You didn't create that video, you just copied someone else's content. Uploading someone else's content without permission could get you into a lot of trouble. It may be copyright infringement. Copyright is a form of protection for original works of authorship, including literary, dramatic, musical, graphic, and audiovisual creations. Copyright infringement occurs when a copyrighted work is reproduced, distributed, performed, or publicly displayed without the permission of the copyright holder or the legal right to do so. Even though YouTube is a free site, you can get in serious trouble for copyright infringement. You can be sued and found liable for monetary damages. You could lose your booty. Or worse, you could lose your YouTube account. You only get a few chances. If YouTube receives a valid notification of alleged copyright infringement from a copyright holder for one of your videos, the video will be removed in accordance with the law. You'll be notified via email and in your account, and you'll get a strike. If YouTube finds you're a repeat offender, you'll get banned for life. Here's an idea. Why not make your own video?
Well guys, you got the idea. So this is an official video from YouTube, and it's a quite old video, but it still continues to get new views. And one of the reasons for that is if you have been marked by YouTube as a copyright, somebody who has violated copyright, as part of your the policy for you to come back is that YouTube will make you watch this video. You have to watch this video as part of saying that you will not be violating copyright anymore. So it's kind of like a kiddish video, and which makes you wonder, you know, why, like YouTube, which is such a big company, why do they have such kiddish video, which is mandatory for people to watch if they violate the copyright protection. The other thing I want to quickly mention is, you know, just like some of the other companies, YouTube makes most of their monies by advertisement. And even if they have copyright violation happening on their website, but if that content gets them advertisement, you know, you can see there's a conflict of interest right there. So I think YouTube is in the top 3 most popular and watched websites. So it's a concern as with all the copyright happening on that website. Okay, so the next thing after copyright is, and let me make this, or maybe this one is fine, is patents. Patent, unlike a copyright which you get for 75 years or 95 years, something like that, patent you get only for 20 years, but for the 20 years you have a complete control over the expression as well as the idea. So nobody can copy either of them, and it provides you complete monopoly over that idea for 20 years. And for something to get patent, it must be something new, non-obvious and novel. And so patents are mainly used by pharmaceutical companies or for some new business process or some new algorithm, things like that. And so there are multiple electronic commerce patents as well. So for example, the Amazon's one-click purchasing, where instead of going to shopping cart, you just say one-click purchasing. They have a patent on that. The double-click dynamic delivery of online advertisement, which that company is now owned by Google. So they have a patent on that. And as you can just, even though this is an old figure, but you can see that it's very difficult to get a patent. Of all the patents applied for, less than 10% I would say gets the patent. But if you do get it, it's 20 years of complete monopoly. Then you have something called trademarks, which are mainly used to identify, distinguish goods and indicate their source. So Google, Microsoft, Apple, Coca-Cola, McDonald's, these are all examples of trademarks. And trademarks are, mainly meant to show in a very simple manner the quality behind the product. So, for example, when you see a product with a, let's say, Nike symbol or an Apple symbol, especially let's say if you live in a country where you don't speak English or you cannot go through all that material, just by having that symbol of or trademark of Apple on your phone, on your computer, or having that Google thing, it sort of signifies certain quality about that product. You have multiple kinds of trademark abuse on internet. The first one being cyber squatting, which is somebody sort of registering a domain name of an existing trademark company. Sort of, let's say, you hear of this company, this new company, new yogurt company, I think, which really happened. So this yogurt company came out of nowhere, become very big, and before they could buy their domain name with the yogurt would be greekyogurt.com. You went ahead and bought that domain name before them, so that then they have to buy it from you. Or you have something called cyber piracy, which is maybe you find a way, for example, what's the most common way people mistype Amazon, and maybe you go and buy that domain name, so that people who by mistake typed Amazon incorrectly or some that website come to you. So these are all example of various abuse of trademarks. Then you have something called trade secrets. So trade secrets, unlike trademark violation, is like, I'm sure you would have heard of, is that Coca-Cola, very strongly protects the recipe of how to make a Coca-Cola bottle. So that's their trade secret. Or what makes Google search engine so much better than their competitor? That's their trade secret. What makes General Electric's aeroplane engine better than its competitor? Trade secrets. So these are all example of trade secrets, and nowadays it has become a big thing for maybe domestic, maybe other foreign companies to sort of steal these trade secrets. And as a response to that, in 2016, the Defend Trade Secret Act was created, which is meant to protect companies, US domestic companies, against hackers and foreign hackers who wants to steal the trade secrets. And one of the reason Google left China was, if you can look it up, is that they were worried that their algorithm, which was their trade secret, was being stolen by some Chinese hackers or maybe Chinese companies or some other entity there. Okay. Then you have a concept called, so the concept of net neutrality says that all internet traffic should be going at the same speed from one point to another. So for example, if I'm sitting in my home and I type in google.com or uh, or msn.com or yahoo.com, all the three pages should, the data coming for all these three pages should come at the same speed. Or for example, if I'm using Gmail versus Hotmail, or whether I'm going to, irrespective of whichever website I'm going, whether I'm going to amazon.com or a mom and pop shop, the data should come at the same time. So there was a lot of friction going on that topic, and there was a try to change those rules where certain companies could pay more to get a preferential treatment in terms of how fast their data could be sent. So for example, I in my house use Wow Air, sorry, not Air, Wow Internet Company. So maybe Amazon can pay them a little bit more to get preferential treatment and their data coming to my house at a faster rate. So this was rejected in 2010, but in 2010 the net neutrality was reversed, and internet was reclassified as Title I information service, which means people or companies can now pay more to get preferential treatment in terms of how the data can go. Nothing much has changed though, but at least that now the net neutrality is no more a requirement. So some companies can pay more. And I have this video which is from 2017. I can show you the first minute of it.
Does this bother you? What if you had to pay to make it go away? We often assume that all the information on the internet is equally accessible. It's not quite as simple as that, but this ideal is the basis of net neutrality. It's an issue that's been on the agenda in the US for years, but it actually affects people all over the world. Here's the problem. Without net neutrality, your internet service provider, or ISP, such as BT or Comcast, could influence what you see and how quickly you see it. In order for you to watch YouTube, browse Facebook, or read the news, you need an ISP to connect you to that content. Net neutrality demands that ISPs should treat all web traffic the same. Let's think about that in terms of real traffic. The ISPs are like the road between Tech City, where companies like...
So you can watch this video on your own time. Well, with the net neutrality gone, what can be done is that at Google and Amazon might be given a faster route, and let's say Twitter and mom and pop shop will be stuck in traffic taking the non-tall or non-fast road, something like that. So that covers this piece, the property rights, the most important part of this chapter, the property rights one. The next is the privacy and information rights, which talks about, first of all, privacy. So what is our privacy? Privacy says that we as individuals have right to not to be monitored in certain places, like in your home. You should be not monitored, your privacy should not be violated in your own home, and then the subset of privacy which relates to us is the information privacy, or as it connects to online information collecting, that certain information should not be collected at all. Like for example, if you are in a place of worship, like you're in a church or a temple, maybe you are at a bar, you're just talking with your friends, or you're having a discussion with your colleagues or friends. So certain information should not be collected at all when you are in such places. And what control or who control the use of such information which has been collected about a person. So what it means is that if certain information has been collected about me, then I should have some control over how that information will be used by a certain company. So there are, ethical, social, political issues related to privacy and information rights. The first, the ethical question is, under what conditions can we invade the privacy of others? So if somebody comes to my website, maybe somebody's trying to buy something from me, somebody is using my search engine, can then I collect data about them? And then the social issue is expectation of privacy. That is, at certain places, at certain locations, your privacy will not be violated. And then the political issue with this is related to privacy is that what are some of the laws which should be developed as related to people who are collecting the data, like Google, Facebook, and people who own that data, like users like me and you. And that's what I was talking in the opening case about that Google case, as the laws are much more strict in Europe, where people or individuals have much more control over their own data. So for example, they have something called right to be forgotten, which we don't have here. So what kind of information electronic commerce companies can collect? They can collect PII kind of data, personally identifiable information, which is defined as any data that can be used to identify, locate, or contact an individual. And that's the definition coming from FTC, Federal Trade Commission. And all the other data besides these should be anonymous. That means you cannot have a person's identity be collected. Besides location, you can or location and things like that. So if you are trying to locate, contact, or identify by individual, but you cannot collect their personal information, like their name and stuff, how do you manage it? So a lot of these companies, they, like for example, Google can locate or contact or identify me, Nitin Walia, but they will not be identifying me by my name. They will be doing that by assigning me a unique ID, a code. It could be something like NW 44844OH, Ohio. That's very straightforward. Or it could be something like XYZ 12A900 in their record. So that's how they identify me. And the information they are collecting about me includes the clickstream behavior data. That is a behavior data, that is the data they are collecting about each of my online browsing sessions, and things like that. Without connecting my name, without really identifying me as Nitin Walia, using some sort of code, they can still collect, not the name. They can still collect data such as my age, my occupation, income, zip code, ethnicity, my browsing behavior. So all that kind of things they can collect, but not these two things. By address, I mean, sorry, this is my misstep. Or by address, I simply means they can collect my zip code or things like that, not my individual house address. Then, with social networks, the things have gone on a different level. Facebook, we are ourselves providing all our information, our pictures. The whole purpose of social network is to share personal information who am I? Who am I married to? Who are my friends, my kids? Where am I going for vacation? Where I'm eating my dinner on Saturday? So we're on a platform where you are yourself providing all this information. It sort of becomes very difficult. I say it's a challenge to maintain a person's privacy. And nowadays, this is a unique time. Every second day you are hearing how Facebook has been violating our privacy by selling our data to companies and things like that. Just recently I was reading that on one of those one of those websites where they look at your DNA and say, what's your ethnicity. Like, for example, you could be 40% Irish, 30% German, 20% American Indian, things like that. So even those websites was once, they were selling their data to then hospital companies and stuff like that. So all the data they've collected on people about their ethnicity, about their DNA, they were selling it to hospital or pharmaceutical development companies. So it's kind of a very tough situation nowadays going on. And research has shown that, on the contrary to people's thinking, people are who are on websites like Facebook or some other. I just say Facebook because the most popular one, or other social network. They have much more stronger sense or desire, as well as interest in maintaining their personal privacy. They are aware of it, maybe because they're sharing it so much, and that sort of goes in opposite manner of that organization desire to make money out of our own personal information. So that sort of always it's a friction going on between the users on social network who are using these facilities, these systems for free, versus organization like Facebook or Twitter who wants to monetize all their data to make as much money as possible. Then with mobile devices, add your social network, everything we just talked about, add that to mobile devices where now with GPS on, your location on, so you can even collect data about users' location. That's the other thing. Other thing gets added to your mobile devices is that your persistent location tracking. And all of us have us on our smartphones. We have our bank app, we have our work email, personal email, social media, on which we are always logged in. And can one app collect data from some other app on your phone? And again, we just recently, last month, we saw Facebook was trying to do that on your phone. And since your mobile phone has so much of your information on it, the US Supreme Court made a ruling that police, if you are stopped in your car or walking, police will need a search warrant to search your cell phone. But on the other hand, if you are crossing the border, the line is little hazy, where then the border crossing police, whatever they call the immigration police, can they check your smartphone or not? So that line is still a little gray as of now. Then this is one of the profiling and behavioral targeting. It's one of the key issues in online privacy. So profiling or anonymous profile, which is done by all the marketing companies or Google and other companies, is they create an anonymous profile for each person so that they can identify accordingly. And according to your profile, anonymous profile, they can target you for certain kinds of ads. So for example, if your anonymous profile, where your name is not collected, says you are a male between 20 to 30 year old, college graduated, income more than 35K, these are kind of the uh, clothes you might be interested in. So those are sort of the profiling which is done, which is sort of like a data image based on mainly your online behavior as well as the behavior of the group you belong to, which has been done using cookies, things like that on your, which are left on your computer. Now the problem or issue has started is connection of your anonymous profile with your personal profile. Like on your websites like Facebook, Twitter, most of these places we have our personal profile with my name, with my personal identifier associated with it. Now, if Google combines my data from what Google searches I do on Google and combine that with some sort of social network, then they have a complete picture of me available. They have my online search data, my online behavior data, my browser behavior connected with my personal profile, maybe coming from a social network, and then they have this complete information about a certain individual, certain person by combining both their anonymous and personal profile, and they can much more minutely target them for ads, maybe dynamically adjusting the prices, show a higher price to somebody compared to somebody else. So couple of years back, both in America and in Europe, the regulators asked Google, especially because when you go in Google, you have so many different services available by Google. So they were sort of the number one in combining anonymous and personal profiles. So they asked them to step away from it, and Google promised to stay away from it. And how much was the promise kept or not? That's your you can take a call yourself. Nowadays, when I, like for example, when I am on Google, I'm always, look at that, I'm already logged in. Same thing on my phone, I'm already logged in, it already knows my location. So the whole purpose of making sure that I'm always logged in is so that they are able to combine my personal and my anonymous profile with each other. Some of the other ways you can do profiling and behavioral targeting is deep packet inspection, where your ISP company, the company which provides you internet, it simply records every click you are done on your keyboard. So that way, if whatever you are typing, they are collecting it. So for example, when you type in facebook.com, they now know you're on Facebook, and then the next letters which you're typing is whatever message you are typing, or when you go to google.com, whatever you're searching. So that's called deep packet inspection. Most of the ISP companies have been told not to do that, and they all have promised they're not doing it. So again, that's where we stand with that. All the ISP companies have said that they do not do deep packet inspection or do not record whatever we are typing on our keyboard. Then we've been talking about companies like Google, Amazon, Facebook collecting data about them. One of the biggest collector of data, user data of individuals, of citizens, is generally the government, and these are some of the, I'm sure the Patriotic Act is one of the most popular one, which all of us have heard in some movies or something. So they have been meant to collect data on the users. Government agencies are the largest users of private sector data brokers. They have been known to collect data from where ISP companies asking them to collect from data. There was a very famous case where a particular government organization asked Apple's help to open a phone, which I think Apple refused. So that was a very popular case, I think a year back, where Apple has refused to open a phone of an individual which the government wanted it to open. So that's some way our privacy gets invaded. Do we have protection in the Constitution? Absolutely, we have one of the highest protection. The First Amendment, which is freedom of speech, provides us the freedom to say something, whether it's on an online medium or in some other traditional medium as well. Fourth Amendment is that nobody can take your phone, unreasonable search and seizure, take your phone or laptops. And 14th Amendment, which says that we will get a due process in a court of law for any cases or for any crime. Then in your book you can read even more. The European Data Protection Directive, the reason we're talking about that is that in Europe, the data protection for its citizens, people living in the European border, is much higher than anywhere else in the world. And especially with this GDPR, which came in 2016, they have provided one of the strongest protection for their citizens compared to the rest of the world. Some of the examples of how their protection is much stronger than US is, in US by default, when you use a website, we have opted in. That opted in means that we are giving the permission to the company to collect data, and in Europe by default you have opted out, that you have not given the company permission to collect your data. So there in Europe the companies have to ask your permission, so you have to opt in, and in here in US we have to make an extra effort of opting out, that we don't want our data to be collected. Furthermore, in Europe you can approach companies like Google or Facebook and ask them to show you what data they have about you. You can check it. You can check it. You can say it's wrong, right? You can ask for it to be modified, and most importantly, you have right to be forgotten. That if I say I don't want my name to show up on any search, I can demand that. And especially with last 1 or 2 years, with so much data privacy concerns from firms like Facebook, there is a change coming. Let's see what happens. This is the ongoing thing happening. This would have been a nice class discussion, that do we accept the trade-off between privacy our privacy invasion versus free web content. What does that mean? We all get free Facebook, free Snapchat, free Google, free Gmail. So if we are getting all these great products for free, which we have become used to getting everything for free, is it okay in return those companies are violating, or not, I shouldn't say violating, are collecting data about us? So it's a good question to think about, which you can think about, and maybe we can talk in one of the next classes. Then, are there any technological solutions available to protect ourselves against our privacy, our data being collected about us, things like that? So there are multiple technological solutions available: spyware, pop-up blockers, malware check you can do, or there's something called platform for privacy preferences. What that does, it's a very creative idea. What that does is that instead of going and checking each website what privacy policies they have, instead of doing that, you set your own privacy policies on your own web browser. So I've set on my web browser, this I am fine with, and this kind of data collection I am not fine with. So whichever websites meets my criteria about privacy, open those websites, and which websites do not meet my criteria, do not open them. So I am setting the criteria on my web browser, and whichever website meets my criteria is opened, whichever one does not is not open. So which was a very good and creative creative technological solution. Unfortunately, in a study done in 2010, where they in the study Leon et al. 2010, they analyzed 33,000 different websites, and they found out that in nearly 1/3, 11,000 of them have wrongly stated what their website privacy practices are. So, by what that means is that I would have set certain criteria, and these 11,000 websites, because my web browser would have checked, would have said, yes, we meet your criteria, but they were simply lying or misrepresenting, if that's a better word. So it's in today's age, today's environment, maintaining your online privacy, digital privacy, has become somewhat difficult, and especially with the high usage of our mobile devices and our continuous reliance on certain products like Facebook, Instagram, Google, Microsoft. We are limited in how many products I use. I can talk about myself. The two products which I use most is Google search engine, Google Docs, Google Calendar, Google Maps, Google Photos, and then the other product I use is Facebook and WhatsApp, which are both owned again by Facebook. So these two companies have got a huge monopoly, both Google and Facebook, and they are collecting both anonymous data and my profile data from various services they provide. So it is a little bit tricky. On the other hand, the most common answer I hear from users is that I don't have anything to hide. If they want to collect data about me, they can, as long as they're providing me this great service, which is true. Most of us don't have anything to hide, but that sort of goes back into the question of that do we have a reasonable expectation of privacy, that I think it was somewhere else, that do we have some sort of expectation of privacy, or is that what our expectation of some privacy is that also being pushed that has been pushed away and away, or that has been redefined with each new generation, each 5-10 years, that what is reasonable, what is not, is that it itself is evolving. So I'm sure each one of you would have a different take on this question, and I'm sure 5 years after 5 years, if I ask the same question from one of my class, they will have even different answer, because what is a reasonable expectation of privacy is changing, is evolving. There are still few slides, like what is a New York Times test. There are 3-4 slides you can read yourself, and actually this finishes chapter number 8 completely. So thank you for watching.